Welcome to the BWI Live Show. I'm Thomas Rankar, the last one before Penn State Northwestern. It's Thursday, and so we've got your recruiting information. We've got the latest news going on with the Nittany Lions, and of course, our game previews and predictions. So, a lot of interesting stuff going on. It's a mad scramble to the end of the week, and I've got the best guys here to help me out with it. That is Ryan Snyder and Sean Fitz of Blue White Illustrated, are recruiting reporters and recruiting football reporters who cover everything at this time of year. So, guys, welcome to the show. How has this week been for you? I'm curious as how all of this has transpired. Somebody just texted me this morning and said, well, at least you have no shortage of content, which is fair. So Fitz, I know we talked on Tuesday, but just curious how your week has gone from processing and reporting on everything going on.
Shortage of content is not wrong, but it's like Ryan put out a fantastic story yesterday, and it was met with pretty much what you would expect, the apathy of like, well, they say that now, but wait till they lose 12 more games, which is not possible. But you know, you're in a spot right now where it's just hard to process. And I understand that as a fan, like being hard to process, like what you've seen out there versus what you expected to see. And yeah, I get it. And it's just it's not Ryan's fault.
Careful.
But
careful. Yeah. Don't you? I get it, and obviously are now off the table for all humans to say in the Penn State ecosystem. So we have to be careful with our words. Ryan, how are you doing today?
Doing well. Phillies are still alive. The Yankees are not. It is a great day. I thought we were talking Phillies today, not recruiting, but that's okay.
If you want to lead the show, I will just sit back and hang out because I don't know. I don't know. I don't.
2 days to you and Greg, and like the words that came through that text about the Phillies. Like you're ready to just give up or anything like that. This is more Greg.
Yeah,
but yeah,
we had a wonderful time at CVP on Monday. It went great until they blew it always in the end, but we won last night. So. Let's talk recruiting, though. Let's talk Penn State.
Yeah,
I think that's what everybody's here to talk about. So
yeah, let's get to the recruiting news. And I think what you just wrote down is probably where I want to start, which is Keegan Croucher. This is a conversation of a player that I think Penn State fans had just put at the top of their list because the guy that you guys had put at the top of the quarterback list is no longer on the board. So what's going on with the quarterback search for Penn State for 2027?
Well, no longer on the board is, they're going to keep going after Keegan Croucher, just like they're going to keep going after Peter Bork. So long way to go, obviously, until those guys can sign. We're talking, 14 months or so still. But him committing to Ole Miss was interesting. I didn't really, I think a lot of people kind of thought Oregon would be maybe more Penn State's competitor there. Obviously had a great visit to Ole Miss on September 27th. Did not come to the whiteout. Went to Ole Miss instead. Find it odd that he then commits to Ole Miss the day after Penn State loses to UCLA. I don't know any real coordination or.
And Steve had put a pick in after his.
That's true. That's
his Ole Miss trip.
Yeah.
But
it just was.
I think.
But
yeah,
it's a loss, man. Go ahead, Dean.
No, just like. Looking at the places for quarterback specifically to be interested in, Oregon makes a lot of sense because of the recruiting profile and the scheme and all those things. Ole Miss is going to be a place that receivers and quarterbacks want to go play because it's a very friendly system to those players. And with Jackson Dart in the NFL, you can say like, yeah, you can play in this system and go to the NFL and be a player. I don't know that the system necessarily gets you ready for the NFL in terms of processing and the actual like plays and things like that. But Lane Kiffin is a good coach and is a good quarterback developer. We've seen them be productive in a lot of places. So Penn State has not developed that reputation with Aller and Grunkmeyer so far. So I think like some of these things do kind of make sense when you look at it in the big picture. And I guess that's the curiosity is how do you get over that? How do you then prove to some of these guys that you don't have to go to Michigan, you don't have to go to UCLA or USC, you don't have to go to Oregon? Fitz, I know we're getting right into the murky perception conversation, but it is very real when we're talking about these premier positions. So I guess like, what are your thoughts on the impact of performance from the quarterback over the last, let's say 8 or 9 games, and some of the way the headwinds are blowing in recruiting? Do you think that there's Do you think that if things had gone differently, there might have been a different outcome, or is it just it is what it is with
Yeah,
that
I just
position?
opened the rundown and saw that Ryan stated that Keegan Croucher committing to Ole Miss is a topic potentially. Now we're just like full bore right into
It was
I
great.
just noticed it wasn't on the rundown. I was like,
Yeah.
It's
kind of
great.
a good topic. Yeah.
So we're here. Let's talk about it. Yeah, Penn State's reputation for quarterbacks as a quarterback school is not good, and that's like pretty standard when you think about what we talked about with Drew when he was recruited. Was that this was the referendum on James Franklin as a quarterbacks coach, and I think that there are, those two have been tied together pretty tight. I mean, we can rehash the Bo stuff. That's for you on Saturday too, Frank. But you're looking at a situation where his success was going to vault Penn State into, that sort of Ohio State realm where they just keep churning them out, or if it was going to turn back into kind of what we've seen so far. And especially when you bring in a coordinator who fit the other guy better, then that's going to raise questions all over the place. Now, again, Ole Miss, a good spot to go for quarterbacks, and Lane has done it both with high school guys and with transfer guys. So I think that is an important sort of differentiator between a lot of different programs, because some schools are just like they're transfer quarterback schools. Penn State is complete opposite of that. They want to bring in their own guys. They want to develop their own guys. But at the same time, you have to recognize and you have to understand that if you're going to develop your own guys, you got to find the guys that fit the system. And the system, whether it's, going back to Joe Moorhead, whatever. I don't put it on the big screen today. Sorry, guys. But you're looking at a situation where James Franklin likes running quarterback because of all the threats that we always talk about.
Yeah.
Putting defenses in conflict. And when you keep going out and getting the, I guess, highest rated guy, and that's not always the case either, but you keep targeting a guy that's not what you want for an optimal fit in this offense, is what you're going to get. And I think they're sort of reaping what they sowed here, and they have to live with it. Now, the difference here is that there's no more pro style quarterback. There's no more dual threat quarterback. All that stuff is off the table. It was jargon, lingo, whatever you want to call it. Now you have to be athletic to play quarterback no matter what. Now it's about
the percentages, right? How much you're asking those guys to do those
evaluating things. How much of a running quarterback you want to be. And I think that Penn State sort of wants to skew more toward that running quarterback. And you look what they've recruited. Grunk can do some of those things. He's a pretty athletic kid. Probably doesn't get that credit. Smolik can do some of those things as well. Beckham Kritza, I don't think, can do those things. But yeah, you've kind of gone away from that. Now, that is not to say that Michael Johnson Jr. was the answer either. Like that, you got to find the best guy that can play. And the way the Penn State recruits, the best guy that can play is usually in this region. So you go back a couple cycles, you have plenty of questions. You've had decommitments. You've had decommitments of guys that have gone on to be successful, and decommitments of guys not so much. So it's an evaluation. It is rooted in an evaluation error. Excuse me. It's rooted in an evaluation error that goes back to aligning with what you want to do on offense.
Ryan, what do you think?
I'm gonna jump. Like, the last thing I'll add is just this quarterback room is very interesting to me right now, and I'm very curious to see where things go, because in my eyes, it's hard for me to envision Jackson Smolik and or Ethan Grunkmeyer being here after, even, I guess, is there going to be a spring transfer portal? I guess there's not. So it's going to be that one in January. But if there's a situation where we'll say Smolik, just because it feels like Grunkmeyer surpassed him as far as being the number 2, and he leaves, well, then you're in a situation where Beckham Kritz hasn't been available on the availability report all year. Is he practicing, guys? Have you seen him out there a lot? Like, what is that situation too? Because if anybody needed time to get caught up to speed, it's Beckham Kritza.
Right.
And
hand, wrist, and a splint for most of the year. So
right, and that's what I thought. I just hadn't
on throwing hand, I believe,
or anything. But okay, so now you're in a situation where you already kind of added a guy last year who clearly needed reps and time, and he's not getting that right now. Whatever happens with him, we'll see. I think they're happy with the way Troy Hune has progressed. And more I've watched Troy, I feel better about how he fits the offense and things like that. But
good senior year. Yeah, definitely. Especially this past weekend against good competition.
Yeah. So that's okay. But I would not be shocked if we're in a situation where Troy Hune and Ethan Grunkmeyer are 2 scholarship guys next year. And
I mean, they're going to have to look portal. Like
they're going to have to.
There's no getting around it this time.
Right.
Like you can rationalize it all you want, and will they find that guy? And how do they find that guy? Especially if you want to look at this room and look at how they've done things as a process and say that, Grunkmeyer is next up. And what is that going to say to a guy that wants to come in and start? Like that is the big question that you have to get over, is like there's misguided thought processes out there that Franklin is overly loyal to the oldest guys. It's not necessarily the case, but at quarterback, it's been a situation of, yes, he is loyal to more so than others, Sean Clifford, Drew Aller, whatever, whatever have you. And those guys are multi-year starters, whatever. But like, it's going to hurt them in the portal to recruit against teams that will say, hey, you're an outsider there, you're not going to play.
Yeah.
The other thing too,
the
is
value of the accumulated reps and snaps is what Franklin and his staff are banking on. The more you play, the better you get, the more experiences you see. And if you constantly are changing quarterbacks, then you're not developing one player to see all those situations and then eventually defeat them. The problem has been seen a lot of situations and still don't seem to be defeating them on an increasingly consistent basis. There seems to be like a certain plateau that their quarterbacks reach in this thought process. Ryan, I interrupted you. What were you going to say?
You're good. I still think that Penn State would be wise to try and flip somebody in the 2026 class if they can down the stretch. They wanted to, right? Peyton Falzone was committed, but when your season isn't going as well as many expected, and who knows where they'll be in a month from now, like that's becoming a lot harder to do. So yeah,
but also I think you can get a younger quarterback in the portal now, the way that things work.
Sure.
I mean, you
probably gave
him business card to Bryce Baker when he walked off campus, and
that seems to be going really well.
You think Penn State's a dumpster fire right now? I think a lot of people tuning in are using that right now. But boy, North Carolina.
Nobody saw that coming. Nobody saw it. Zero people. And just like
my
you
last
guys,
thing, real quick, T. Frank.
Sure.
Let me just get one last thing in here too. So there's just a lot of moving parts here with quarterback right now. And here's the thing. So okay, we're in a situation where maybe it is, if it were to be just Grunk and Hugh next year, well, you got to aim high. Even if Kritz is still here, you got to aim high for a 2027 quarterback. They need a talent infusion in that room, in my opinion.
Yep.
But now you're in a situation where you're aiming high for Elijah Haven, who's the guy from Louisiana. Penn State never gets kids from Louisiana, so just where is this going to go here? I just feel like it's a different mentality from what we've seen before, where they kind of spread a wider net, narrow things down, where right now it kind of feels like they really wanted Bork. Then Crozier kind of came in the mix and they won in really hard there. And now it kind of feels like Elijah Haven's the one they're focused on the most. Well, I'm a little concerned on where they're shooting there, and obviously they're scouting guys, and obviously the fact they are not offering a ton of others means they're not seeing a ton they like. But to me, it's just a very interesting situation, because this room, in my opinion, is going to need some talent. And the way it's going right now, I don't know. I'm not hopeful.
So I'm going to put this up here. Logan asked this question. This is the question I have for you guys. Actual question: is there any possible way to pull a King Mac with Bo Pribula? Because this has been a common thing for 3 weeks now, of people being like, "Well, Bo Pribula can come back next year," and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Logically, that makes zero sense to me. And I just wanted to say, is this just fan wish fulfillment, or is there some sort of
King Mac didn't really play at Bama though.
Right, he wasn't the starter,
and he's making great money, and he's going to make more money next year.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's what I thought.
Do you disagree with my wondering about the quarterback room here moving forward?
Me?
I'm done on this topic. Yeah. I don't know.
I
looked at your face. I thought you may disagree.
I mean, it's just the Bo thing. I mean, guys have contracts, is what it is. You're not. And I agree with T. Frank. King Mac was looking for a way out of Alabama. There's no real reason right now, and I think that Missouri's schedule is going to come hard and fast at them, but I don't think there's any reason to get out of there, especially with the fit that we've seen with that offense. So I think that you're looking at that. You're looking at different questions, and also the bigger question here is quarterback development as a whole. And T. Frank, I know that you and I have talked about this a little bit, and what makes a quarterback these days, and where is that gap? And because that gap has gotten bigger between guys come in and kind of flounder around and move around, whatever. And you're seeing a lot of small school guys, sort of rising up. I think the USF North Texas game is going to be really good this weekend. North Texas has got a really good quarterback, but they're finding ways to get onto the field and play. Whereas these guys at bigger schools like Penn State are, sort of sitting behind and waiting. And it's sort of a groundswell of not to say there's not any good quarterbacks anymore, but quarterback is not what you thought it once was, because I think there's so much expectation on the position. You got the ball in your hands every play, which is always the case.
Yeah.
But the pressure is more than anything. And then all of a sudden you bring money into it and the pressure goes even higher. So you're not seeing a lot of quarterback development. And again, Aller, Nussmeier, Cape Klubnik, there's that.
What you're describing is almost an NFL feel to it, where like the pressure and the expectations are so high now that it's produce or you're
produce,
gone,
not develop. And like there's got to be a middle ground in there, because you have to become a good quarterback before you can produce like a good quarterback. So that's the college game in a nutshell right now, and that's far beyond Penn State.
Well, this is a way better conversation than going over the practice notes that we had from yesterday, which after 10 minutes of seeing the same thing that we've seen for multiple weeks in a row, the details you need to know, bluewhiteillustrated.com. You can sign up right now. If you didn't get our $1 deal that we had previously, where it was $1 for a week for a year, $52, I'm sorry to say you missed that, but we still have an awesome deal. Ton of value. You can go read our practice notes right now. You can join for $1 and get an access of a year access to the Athletic included. So check that out at bluewhiteillustrated.com. Of course, this show is brought to you by Andy Ludicky and My Perfect Franchise. I know a lot of people want to make an impact on Penn State football. I was thinking about this the other day. A lot of times, like I don't understand some of like the things that come our way. But we're almost like in a representation position for fans, like almost, like a representative in the Congress or in the state Senate, right? Like we have access to the people that you want to get your message to. Well, here's another way. Make a boatload of money and then donate it, and that usually gets you in the room, right? And maybe this is a perverse way of saying this, but check out Andy Ludicky and My Perfect Franchise. MyPerfectFranchise.net will teach you the process of buying a franchise or a small business, by the way. He can do that as well, so that you can make money, determine your future, and maybe you'll be the next billionaire that can buy a football team, or you're the next CEO that is influence over at Penn State football. It all starts with a call to Andy, 404-973-9901, Andy at myperfectfranchise.net, or you can go to the Blue White Illustrated message board. He's got a contest going on where you can get a 6-month subscription to BWI comped for playing Guess That Franchise on the message board. So check him out. Awesome sponsor. Thank him for being part of the BWI live show. Also very excited because I love real estate. I love looking at houses. I love being nosy. I like just all these things. I have a weird obsession with it that's developed since it took me 5 years to buy a house. So I just got the bug of looking at these things. And I was super excited to meet Ann Lusk of Sotheby International Realty fame. She is a well-known member and realtor in Southeast Pennsylvania. She has moved here into Happy Valley. She's a proud supporter of all things blue and white, and her team of knowledgeable, detail-oriented agents serve clients throughout Happy Valley and beyond, offering both local expertise and global connections. So whether you're buying your first home, selling luxury real estate, relocating, buying land, whatever it is, they can help you out. They have got the size and personality to handle any sort of real estate experience from start to finish, because this is a big deal. It's a big damn deal to be selling or buying a house or buying land, buying real estate. You notice, if you go to Andy and you make a lot of money, and then you can go to Ann and you can invest all that money, and you got a perfect duo here on the recruiting show, by the way. 814-808-7588 if you want to give Ann and her team a call. LuskandAssociates.com, and then use the finder to look at all the properties. If you're looking to buy something here in State College or in the surrounding areas, maybe you're looking to sell, all that stuff that can help you out. We always encourage you, if you're in these situations, knowing a name, word of mouth, that's the best way to go and find the best possible person to help you in whatever situation it might be. So check out these people who are we vouch for here on the BWI live show. Okay, so let's get into our recruiting reactions to the last couple of weeks. So it hasn't been going well, if you haven't noticed. Penn State has lost the last two. And Ryan, you have as good of a pulse as anybody on Penn State's recruiting and also the actual players committed to the program and what they think. Everyone on the outside thinks that the mice are going to abandon ship and everyone's going to leave because they've lost to UCLA and to Oregon. What is the reality of the situation as far as you can tell based on who you've talked to?
Yeah. Excuse me. I always find myself, I feel like when we're doing commit videos and stuff, I always bring up character and maturity and those things. And there's a reason for it, though, and that is because Penn State does build a quality locker room with guys that I do generally believe care about the right things, that kind of stuff. And those, those personality traits really, I thought, kind of stood out in this story we did the other day. Just kind of reaching out to everybody. I think we talked to 12, 13 of the commits, somewhere in that ballpark. And it's a lot of the things that maybe you'd expect adults to say that don't always say. And long story short, what I'm getting at is it's a lot of guys who aren't overthinking a terrible loss at UCLA. A lot of guys coming back to they were right there with Oregon, and we're not going to let one loss and everything that James has helped build as far as a quality locker room, 1-0 mindset, all those little things to deter the way we're thinking at the moment. So I think that's a very positive reaction for fans. And I think fans will enjoy reading that story and seeing what these guys had to say. Now, with that said, right, it's what Sean said earlier, where a lot of reactions from fans were, yeah, that sounds great, but talk to me in a month. And that's understandable. I do get that. If this were to end up being a 7-5 or something like that season, I do think that'll be interesting down the stretch then, and how that could potentially impact this class. But as of now, I think we all still agree that Penn State, although they're not in the top 25 in the AP at least, they're still a quality program. They're one of the best top 20 programs in the country. We all know that. So how they able to react from these losses, build on the season, make something out of what feels like nothing at the moment, but at least show some fight. I think that'll go a long way with recruiting and those efforts as well. So right now, it was very positive. Loved what guys like Julian Peterson had to say, and Ben Azukia, and a lot of these guys, really smart, level-headed players young men really, who get the full picture. And I think most fans understand that it's easy to react and be really negative right after those kind of things. But I think also at the same time, most fans who really follow the program understand that James does do things the right way. He does bring in quality guys. There's a reason they've won 11, 12, 13 games, whatever it's been over the last however many years. And there's no reason to abandon ship or overthink that after just, what's been a tough 15-day stretch.
Is it realistic to think, and Fitz, you said this to start the show.
No,
is it realistic?
No, it's not.
Okay. It's not realistic to think that this team is going to win two more games.
Rob kind of got ahead of yeah. I mean, it's say your question again. I'm sorry. I was preoccupied with Rob. I thought we were talking about
I think he's saying, is it unrealistic that Penn State goes 5-7?
So my point is, the chat is already talking about Kirk Cignetti. They're talking about getting somebody that can develop quarterbacks. They've moved on from James Franklin, is what I'm saying. And so, the predetermined notion, before we even get to our game preview later in the show, is that Penn State is going to lose the rest of these games this year, and that what you said of talk to me in 5 weeks or talk to me in 6 weeks is the reality we live in. That is the fact of the future. And so, I don't know, is that realistic? Are we in that reality?
No, it's taking the premonitions that you already had. I mean, nothing that Ryan would have written yesterday is going to change how you feel. That's right. Where we're at. And your responses and your feelings about that, and I said this with the press conference the other day, it's not going to change with tough questions, tough answers, whatever it's going to be. You've made your mind up at this point because the expectations were so high, the product is so low, and there's no reconciling that. And I get it. I get it. That is the thought process that I get. The difference is that there are still football games to play, and they matter. It's it's going back to the whole big wins type thing.
Yeah,
somebody said on the board this week that SMU and Boise State didn't matter. Well, they do. When you make everything about the highest point, and you show up just a little bit short of it, you're going to be disappointed. And I get that. But when you turn everything into coming up to the short of the highest point. That's where we're at right now. And that's sort of the mud that we're walking through right now. And hopefully they can turn around on Saturday. I mean, there's signs that they can, but there's also signs that they can't. I think that's probably the most disturbing thing is you look at this team and you look at what they do in all three phases and say, hey, when they're peaking at their potential, that's great. But they haven't come close to that right now. And I think that's fair in turning it around and figuring out if that's the product that is going to be here to sustain, or if the product that is going to be here is what we've seen for the last 4 years, which is really good football program.
I forget where we were because that was just such a tangent on the conversation. But Ryan, you were talking about like just where the strength of the program is in recruiting, that it has not fallen off because of these two losses. So I guess like where does the turnaround or where does the stability happen in recruiting where this continues for 26 and 27? Because trying to get, these points of attrition do have an effect, but like where are we in the timeline in your mind of where fans think we are and where we actually are?
Well, right the ship first, right? I mean, like that's the first thing you got to do. You got to go out and get a good win this weekend. Iowa, and Ohio State's Ohio State. I don't think any of us are going to predict Penn State to go out there and win at the moment, but getting back to what you expect Penn State to do, which is beat up on most of the Big Ten and look like the quality program that they've been for a long period of time helps. In my eyes, I mean, again, if it totally goes off rails, then maybe we're talking something different for 2026. But I still feel like this 2026 class, I'd be really shocked if it like fell apart. To me, what'll be the most interesting is what you've done in 2027 so far and how the way this season plays out impacts that class. Because obviously it's off to a great start, and they've got guys in that class that, I think truly want to be at Penn State. At the same time, if there's a drop in the standard and, oh, by the way, next year is supposed to be the rebuilding year, not this year. Yeah. Well, then, I think that gives schools ammo, not to mention a reason to maybe get aggressive financially here and there with some of these guys, Keymonsville, to maybe change some things. So to me, again, it really would have to go off the rails, I think, for 2026 to fall apart. But it's 2027. That's if this is an 8-4 kind of season where, well, maybe, and again, next year's rebuilding year. That's where I'm like, that might not be good.
So let's move on to talk about what's happening this weekend with Northwestern and team and players coming to this particular game. It's the only home game here in October. So what's the list like, and what is the lag like where you aren't getting guys into the program to remind them of like the strengths of the program because you don't have any home games, and all of this turmoil is going on externally, at least right now before what you've talked about of the only opportunity to right the ship happens on Saturday. You can't do anything until then. So what's this list like, and what's this weekend going to be like at homecoming?
Well, a lot like, not nearly on the level of what we saw for Oregon, but where I'm going with this is similar to the first couple games leading to Oregon, small crowds. Northwestern was always kind of expected to be one. Why? Because it feels like Penn State's aiming for that Indiana game and to be the next big kind of recruiting weekend for them. For example, I think I literally have more kids for Indiana at the moment than I do for Northwestern, and that's obviously like a month away. So I don't expect a big crowd this weekend. I don't know how aggressive they're being as far as trying to get a lot of prominent guys in on this weekend, because I kind of wonder, what could happen if they start slow and the fan reactions, all those kind of things. With that said, there are some guys. Eli Ferguson, I think, is a really good-looking wide receiver prospect down in Tennessee at the moment. Not rated yet by Rivals. 5'11", 170 is where we got him at. I think that number's a little bit dated. We'll find out here, after he visits, hopefully. But, this is a player who originally grew up in Baltimore, moved to Nashville. I think, was it 2 years ago, I believe. But Penn State was actually his first offer. He was at St. Francis originally, and they've done a good job recruiting him, staying on top of things. Really been trying to get him to visit for a while now, and this will be his first time on campus. But Ferguson's having a quality season. Tennessee, Ole Miss, a bunch of those SEC schools are very interested in him. So let's see where things go long term. But this is, again, you're going to see a 3-star rating from 24/7 and nothing for the other two right now. he's a prospect that Penn State's very intrigued with, and I think many other prominent programs are. So, don't be surprised if that rating looks way better or he moves up quite a bit in the months ahead.
If Tennessee and Ole Miss are here at the top, he's got to be fast. Just those schemes, those teams. I see like, oh yeah, he's a fast wide receiver because Tennessee and Ole Miss are interested.
Sean, how do I pronounce the German kid's name? Any idea?
I'm staying away from that.
Marvin.
Yeah.
I have no idea, honestly, how to pronounce his last name. Out of Germany, as I said, 6'7", 275-pound defensive lineman. I'd be surprised if he's actually 6'7". I'll be curious to get on that number when it's all said and done.
They shrink when they go through custom.
They tend to be more like 6'5", 280 or something like that.
6'7" is a pretty good starting point, but yeah.
Yeah,
we'll see. I thought Mekhi Brown, for example, another New England defensive lineman. I was like, this number has to be embellished, and I learned actually it wasn't. He is legit 6'7". So we'll see. But I'm just going to call him Marvin. I have no idea how to pronounce his last name, to be honest with you guys. He's at St. Thomas More now, came over. If you guys remember PPI recruits, they basically go out and kind of find some European guys who, playing club football over there, or actual American football, I should say, come over to the States, try and get scholarships. And, for this young man, it has worked out pretty well. Came over to St. Thomas More in Connecticut, South Carolina, Michigan, Georgia, Nebraska. He's got a lot of quality offers now. And I don't believe Penn State's one of them yet, but I would not be shocked at all if, that comes this weekend. So another example of just kind of getting out in camps and getting your name out there, and obviously a player with a ton of potential. Now, like we also see with a lot of those European guys, a lot of programs are going to offer on athleticism and all those traits. And it's how well they can adapt to the game that will determine whether they end up at a mid-tier P4 or, the top of the top P4. And that's something we'll find out here, with more film through the season. But Marvin and Gutsop, we'll say. Another
that
really
sounds like an
prospect
honest
this
attempt. I like it.
Yeah, I tried. But honestly, a lot of guys that, right now don't really seem, don't have Penn State offers, probably going to end up playing lower ranked Division Ones. There's really not a ton of, 4-star guys you got to circle. Penn State was trying to get Terrence Smith on campus this weekend, top 100 O-lineman out of Lansdale Catholic. They have homecoming, so he's going to go to homecoming, which understandable for a rising junior. I get it. So it's honestly, though, aside from that, it's I'm not expecting a ton. Also, at the same time, as I say every Thursday when we do this stuff, Thursday evening, Friday, usually kind of when I try to circle back and really drill down on that. So we'll see if any late ads, and if there are, we'll chat about it on the site tomorrow.
And of course, to go there, bluewhiteillustrated.com. You can sign up for $1. I mentioned that earlier. If you're watching the video and you're enjoying the show, please like the video and subscribe. And I always forget to say this, but our podcast audience is awesome. And if you want to help us out, because I know a lot of people have more time to listen to a podcast than they do to find the YouTube video and go and watch us sitting down with all the data. And people have free data somehow. I don't understand it. Anyway, so if you listen to the podcast version, do me a favor. Subscribe to us on your whatever podcast platform, and then leave a 5-star review. That helps us to reach more people and tell more people about the BWI live show, because what we do here on the YouTube channel is a podcast. It's a show. It's an hour-long conversation. It's not a 5-minute or 10-minute video to give you a hot take. It's to give you the full context, the full conversation. And so we'd like to share that with as many people as possible. So for our podcast audience, like the video, all that great stuff on YouTube, but please subscribe and tell your friends. Leave a 5-star review on the podcast side. Let's get into the actual game and what's coming up this weekend with Penn State football against Northwestern. Want to get your thoughts on the matchup this weekend. Penn State can right the ship, as Ryan said, and how that might look for the Nittany Lions. So, Fitz, I want to come to you first and get your thoughts on what you've seen of Northwestern on film, what you've seen of them when you've watched them before, going up against Oregon, going up against some of the other teams that they've played so far this year.
Yeah, they're not great, but at the same time, Penn State's in a spot where you can't take anybody for granted. Saw that last weekend. They beat UCLA at home a couple of weeks ago. I think that did matter. They got out to, I believe, a 14-0 lead or 17-0 lead, and UCLA came back and made it 17-14. So I think this is another offense that struggles to score points. You look at what they did against Oregon, and that score line looks pretty good. They scored 2 touchdowns late that made that look a lot better than it did. Scored 3 points against Tulane, and then 2 weeks ago they beat Louisiana Monroe last week. They had a 3-point win over UCLA. So you're looking at a team that will sort of try and grind it out, try and shorten the game, lengthen their drives, and get the most out of that. Now, the thing that I'm looking at with Penn State has not gotten off the field. They've been absolutely dreadful at getting off the field on defense. 3 punts over the last 2 weeks. Now, the one was blocked and returned for a touchdown, which was a pretty good touchdown play there in there. But you're looking at a situation where they're not as dynamic as some of the offenses. They don't have the weapons that UCLA had on the outside, especially with Flores coming back. So I think that they will stick to the run, as they should. Preston Stone can run a little bit. He's not I didn't really say this about Nico last week, but he's not a design run type guy that's going to give people fits. So I think better matchup for Penn State this week. But yeah, low scoring is how I see this one going, just because we haven't seen enough from Penn State from a complimentary angle to think that much is going to change in the next couple of weeks. But I think it's a good opportunity for Penn State to turn around. But Northwestern's offense from a schematic standpoint, just going to try and run the football and basically take the air out of it. And I think that's the right way to go about it. Personally, if I'm attacking Penn State, I do the same. Yeah.
Ryan, what do you think about the game? What do you think about this matchup?
To me, again, I'm going to focus on Penn State. Right now, I was looking at the stats the other day. I think Northwestern's 111, I think, in the country, yards per rush. Penn State has to get a better ground game going. We've seen it from K-Tron. Nick has to get some momentum going. To me, that's where it kind of starts, because I feel like if they can actually get a run game going, well, then maybe they can get in a little bit of a better rhythm in the pass game. Because there's a lot of things that need to happen right now that I just don't quite see clicking for one reason or another. And this feels like if there's ever a get right game, it has to be this weekend. I don't know how you're expecting that to be Iowa, and then, obviously by Ohio State, Indiana, but sadly I'm with Sean though, where I think we'll get into predictions later, but I don't see Penn State covering 21 and a half.
No.
I don't know how you could bet that.
Which is odd, right? Which means it's definitely going to happen, right?
Probably. Yeah. It's going to be 56-7. Yeah.
I don't think any of us picked to cover. And when I saw 21, or I think was it 22 and a half earlier I think it came down a point or something like that.
Yeah.
Man, somebody's got some faith that we maybe collectively don't have.
So here's the thing: is part of this dink and dunk, stay on the field, small ball offense of can Northwestern do this against Penn State? Well, Northwestern did it against Oregon. They were able to run the ball on Oregon, and I don't know if the sleepy Northwestern 11 a.m. kick time just got the Oregon defense, but they were able to sustain multiple drives, and the defense, as I asked James Franklin about this, they don't seem to make a lot of mistakes, and he cut me off in the middle. He's like, yep, they don't make a lot of mistakes. This is a team that is going to drag you into the mud, as you guys have talked about. So they can stay on the field. Their Preston Stone doesn't make a ton of mistakes. He has 6 interceptions, but a lot of those mistakes are coming downfield. He's throwing the ball into contested coverage on a 3rd and 6. 1st and 10, you give him a slant route, that dude can hit a slant route. And he's good enough of a quarterback to find the open player and to read the coverage if you give him the easy coverages to read. And then on the ground, and it's the name butcher show. Caleb Kolomafe, I think, is the starting running back, number 5. Good running back that gets through traffic. And again, I always look at are you generating more than your offensive line is giving you? He's got 250 yards after contact this year. And that's the offensive line for Northwestern. There are no players fits. This is the same thing we always talk. They're the opposite of Penn State in a certain sense of they don't have any guys you go, wow, that guy's good, but they all play well together. Penn State has guys that you go, oh wow, that guy's talented. Look how big and athletic he is, and they're not playing well together. This group, I don't think that there's an NFL player among them, but they don't make a ton of mistakes. And if you give these guys the right angle and the right hole to hit, they'll hit it and they'll get 5 yards, and the running back can generate 2 or 3 more.
Yeah.
So on offense, they
Northwestern
can.
basketball is what they are. Yeah.
I was going to say, it sounds like Northwestern football. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at receiver, you have to make mistakes for them to get big chunk plays. And then defensively, again, I don't think that they're the biggest front, but they're not small. They're the same size across the front from D end to D tackle. They're just kind of stocky, physical players that you can push around. But have we seen Penn State's offensive line be dominant at any point in this season? And it just feels like that's one of those matchups that Penn State should win in the trenches. They should dominate in the trenches, but we haven't seen them do that at any point this year. And then the secondary, I think, is the part of the defense probably is the strongest, where they just are very good at keeping a lid on everything. And they, again, don't make mistakes. You can't. This is what I was getting at, what I was curious about. If you are going up against a team that doesn't make mistakes, are you going to play them more straight up? Of like, okay, now it's going to be, I'm going to run this route. There's not going to be play action. There's not going to be 2 or 3 play fakes. We're not running option football as much. We're just going to run and we're going to pass. And we're going to use these plays to be better athletes than you because we know you're probably not going to bite on anything. And that's my curiosity of the Penn State offense this week is, what does this look like? Do they play a little bit more smash mouth, straight ahead sort of football, or is it's just another week of Andy Kotelnicki and refining what they like to do? Fitz, you have thought about that?
Yeah, that's not his game to play a smash mouth north-south. It's east-west, and that's bitten them a couple times in the last couple of weeks. So, yeah, I think you're looking at that. You're also looking at, Northwestern being like some teams, like I think Penn State finds itself in 10-play drives and not necessarily setting out to do that. And you're going to have to see, number one, better individual efforts, being able to get away from tacklers and things like that, which we have not seen from Penn State. Not just Nick Singleton, by the way. There's been other guys that have left a lot of yards on the field. But Northwestern is content to do that. Their first drive, this was amazing. Their first drive against Oregon was 12 plays, 38 yards.
Yeah.
And it was pretty. It was pretty. 6 minutes, 27 seconds. And guess what? It ended with an interception. Like, it wasn't even a scoring drive. It wasn't even a missed field goal. There was a turnover at the end of it. So they could have kept going. Like, is what we're saying. So.
A 17-play drive ending in a field goal from the 5.
Like, I think Sicko's College Football does the every week they do the longest drive without a score and longest drive that ended up in a field. Like, those things are wildly entertaining. I think Northwestern's in the mix for that kind of every week.
Yeah. What are some interesting, I guess, important points for you guys? We're talking about riding the ship, and it's every week we said this about UCLA. It's not just about playing and winning the game. Although I'm going to go back to what James Franklin said when I asked him, like, how hard is it to make these changes, and like how hard does it get to the offense you want to have? Like, how long would that take? And he said, like, if we had to win ugly, we will win ugly. And this feels like a win ugly game. So I don't know that this is going to be pretty, but what are the signs of life for you, Ryan? What are the things that you think will be a step in the right direction, that they're figuring it out on offense and defense to play more consistently?
We'll get Devontae Ross back in the game. No catches last week, 1 target. Truthfully, I was away through the week. I know you guys watched the game closer than I did. But was that a situation where
lucky guy
Devontae Ross wasn't getting open, or was it Drew wasn't finding him? I was shocked to see that when I read the stats.
He wasn't. I struggle with this. I don't think that he was the focal point of the game plan. I think the tight ends were more the focal point of the game plan, and they just want to make Devontae Ross, or they want to make. I think they should make Devontae Ross the lead receiver, but it feels like a lot is funneled to Kyron Hudson, and so like. That was kind of what happened in this game.
Kyron's also like 13 for 20 on target to reception ratio right now. Like there's some things there that are an issue, but he also speaking of guys who need to break some tackles and stuff. Like I think Kyron Hudson's yards per yak after the catch is like 1.2 yards or something like that. Like that's another thing that has been very interesting to me. I still look at Traver Pena as probably their best receiver at the moment, but.
He's got 30 yards in the last 2 games.
I know.
So
I know.
Yeah.
So this comes down to it's all 3. It starts with Kotelnicki to Drew to the receivers. Like they're not clicking, and that has to change. You would think that again, this is a bend but don't break kind of secondary, like you said, T. Frank. But at the same time,
I thought you were going to call it
has the better
break
athletes.
offense, because that's kind of what it is as well.
That's a good point. I guess it's just, I just feel like, man, if this continues all year, like there just has to be some sort of changes, because you can't bring in these three guys, and it kind of plays out the same way that it played last year. Like there's more issues there than just three guys not clicking with Drew, or Drew not seeing it, whatever it may be. Like it just feels inevitable to me.
This is the frustrating thing, is like at the peak of what Andy Kotelnicki did at Kansas, he had three receivers, and admittedly, they probably had a little more speed than this group, but he had three receivers. They all caught 50 balls, and they all averaged like 15 to 17 yards a catch, and they were explosive. And I think part of the issue to start the years, he was trying to get back to that, and they were trying to throw the ball down the field too much, and these guys don't seem to have the horsepower to get that done. So they did in this past game pivot to more of a ball control passing game, underneath, quick passes, tight ends in between the zones, because they're getting a lot of zone. They're getting just so much zone. And then late in the game, they were able to generate some more passes down the field. But then every time
the screen to Singleton too, like the up the sideline to Singleton,
that
works. Like that, I could see that being, I don't want to say a bigger part of the playbook, but stuff like that, where you get all the satisfaction of going east-west, but then you get to put yourself in the corner and go north-south. I think that would be the appropriate way to approach that.
So you get to distort it every way. You get to use all the blades of grass.
What are you still more worried about? And I mean this to you and everybody in the chat. Are you more worried about the offense or the defense? I think most of us would agree, but I'm just curious.
Oh, Fitz, you go first, because I have to really.
No, this is your show, man.
It has to be the offense in my eyes, but go.
I don't know. So I don't know about that.
Okay.
The defense has some real issues if they want to play the way they want to play, where there is this cascading effect of the defensive line is struggling to control the line of scrimmage on a consistent basis. It's not every single play, but guys are getting blown out of gaps occasionally on double teams, enough that it is a consistent issue. And if you don't have Tony Rojas there to clean those things up, that is now like, we have to change the structure of the defense at certain points, because you can't play with a light box if you aren't controlling the run game at one level, whether it's linebacker or defensive line. So if that continues in this game, which is a possibility of this offensive line isn't going to blow anybody off the ball, but if they just control their gaps and suddenly Penn State's averaging 3.8, 4.2 yards per run again, and it's 3rd and 2 and they convert again, now we've got there is a blueprint of how to attack this defense that doesn't have the physicality up the gut to stop the run and take away the pass the way they want to. But the offense obviously can solve these problems by scoring points, and they just refuse to do it. It is very frustrating to watch from a process standpoint.
You can go back and clip that, and that'll be a thumbnail at some point.
It's again, was this is Tony Rojas truly that much of a loss, or is it
it's the compounding effect of the two?
Yeah, it's
the
something
thrown
aspect of it. He can get places really fast, and that doesn't always result in a tackle, but it can result in turning the play back inside, which Penn State's gang tackling last week did not exist, really. I was going to say it's not good, but I don't think it existed.
That's a good point.
We've seen that a lot with Amari Campbell kind of cleaning up on a lot of the situations. I actually think that's a total fair observation. But I don't know. To me, it's still out. I think for a decade now, it's always been the offense's fault. You know what I mean? No matter what it is.
Your thoughts on this? The offense started behind, because you always expect the defense to be good. Now the defense not particularly good, and so
but they also haven't been bad through 4 of those 5 games. That's all.
No.
I've seen better play from the defense through 5 games than I have through the offense.
So even going through the UCLA game, going through the totality of the information, going through the film, nobody's making mistakes, but nobody's making plays. And that's the biggest problem. That's what James Franklin is saying. You got to play faster and make plays, because the defense, the complexity of the defense is not that they don't know where to be, and it's not that they don't know what they're doing. It's the decision between run and pass. because they're now aligned in these more extreme angles. So linebackers are lined up outside the tackles more often. Safeties are lined up deeper. And so your reaction time has to be faster of diagnosing what the offense is doing, and then your decision-making process within it. Manny Diaz's defense took the decision-making away. You are in this gap, the linebacker's in this gap, everyone's got one gap. Now everyone's got to play the RPOs, they got to play football straight up. So if you do this right, if you are disciplined and smart at football, this defense is designed to take away everything. But right now, they're taking away most things and they're leaking run yardage. And when you leak run yardage, you set up 3rd and 2, and then nobody's afraid of this defensive line on 4th down. They're going for it, they're getting it, and they're continuing these drives. And that's why I say the defense, in terms of a systemic problem, if they continue to allow these drives, that's a problem. And yet, if they just tackled better against UCLA, half of their problems go away. Like UCLA does not put a 10, 15 play drive together in the first half and then follow that up with a field goal. And now Penn State is behind 17 points, which, by the way, leads your lead back, Katron Allen, to not get enough rushing attempts. Like, we want to talk about why Katron Allen didn't get enough rushing attempts. They weren't on the field, and they were behind the whole game.
57 plays. Like, not enough. And
that's wild.
That bleeds into, the conversation in the chat is Tasir Denmark, Kobe Howard. That bleeds into that, is to like get those guys on the field. And I agree with you 100%. I'd love to see those guys on the field, but like the opportunities there are not as bountiful as we had hoped to see. And I think that goes into it, and that doesn't excuse it. I think they still should be out there sometimes. And the way that they're treating the top 3 receivers is basically those guys tap out when they want to tap out. So you send them deep, they tap out, somebody goes in. But then it's like they change personnel. They change personnel and go to Clifford and bring in another tight end, then run the football. And they're just not very diverse. And I mean, it's sometimes the simplest thing. It's defense get off the field, offense stay on the field. And Penn State's doing a horrible job of that. Horrible job.
Yeah, which again is why you hear a lot of the harping on 3rd down and all that stuff, because it is leading to these things. And I have not seen enough, and this is why I asked James Franklin, when do you know it's time to make a change? Because I've said here on this show, I think Penn State needs to make some changes at wide receiver, because I haven't seen the level of play that says, oh, this is impeachable. Like, these guys are making mistakes out there, and they're in ways that if you're a senior receiver, and I keep seeing this happening this year more than I've seen in the past, where they just get shoved out of bounds, and now you're an ineligible player on the field. That is unacceptable. And if there are these things happening, how much worse could a freshman making a mental mistake be? Because at a certain point, these senior receivers aren't even viable targets by the rules. So when do you know it's time to make a drastic change? And basically, he said, the longer the track record and the more trust you've built, the more there is that inherent, you'll work through whatever slump you're in. All 3 of these transfer receivers have been here for a shorter period of time. I would say, like, if there is, and then of course, like, we get the conversation about Kobe Howard and Tasir Denmark, and he basically says, like, they're not good enough to be on the field. So, like, they're in a tough spot at receiver, it seems. So that's, I don't know. That's where it is for me on at receiver.
I'm fine with that. Again, I'd like to see him more, but I don't know what the actual answer is.
So let's get to then. We don't know what the actual answer is. Perfect to go into our game predictions.
Our predictions, yes.
Yeah. So now that we've discussed the game and discussed the systemic problems with the offense and the defense, let's talk about what we think. And I think we all pick Penn State to win. So let's get into that. Ryan, you go first here. What do you think?
Low scoring game, which I don't know. This would be interesting, man. 27-20 was my score. What I'm really looking for is fast starts from the offense, show something, because if they get off to a situation where they're not converting on 3rd down through the first quarter, and we'll see how long after that. Like, it won't just be about leaving Northwestern in the game. It's about, like, how does the crowd react? There's a lot of animosity right now, and I think that's one of the things that I'm most curious to see of all this weekend. So to me, it's about getting off to a decent start. I could see them, I don't think they're going to come off bang, 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 score, score, score like they did against Nevada for however many drives. But, maybe not first drive or two, but they gotta put some points on the board in that first quarter. And obviously, of course, defense has to look like it has, through the first 4 games or so. But UCLA's defense allowed 500 yards in New Mexico. 500 yards to Utah. The fact that Penn State's offense still only had 357 last week, and it just there's a lot of questions there that I still have, and I don't know that we're going to have the answers after this game.
Fitz, what do you think happens in this game?
I got 31-13. I think Northwestern's inability to put points up. Hopefully this does not get played back next week. Is their shortcoming. The only time they've been on the road, they scored 3 points against Tulane, a pretty decent Tulane team, but at the same time, like, they're without that explosive ability. I think defensively they can, this is kind of what they do, right? They keep a lid on things, which is how we've seen to play Penn State, because you can bring that other safety over and clip a running back in the ankle and he turns over. So, like, there's, you got to see better individual efforts from Penn State this week. I don't think it's a situation where they are necessarily like done, but like, this is an opportunity for them to turn it around in a different way than last week. I actually think Northwestern, this is stupid because of the transitive property, which doesn't exist, but the UCLA team that we saw last week and the Northwestern team that I've seen, the last couple of weeks, like, I think that it's probably a step down and they're going on the road. So that's why I got 31-13. I don't have a ton of faith in Penn State doing it, but 31 points in college football, not exactly, lighten it up or anything like that, but it'd be a nice little turnaround, and homecoming and everything like that. You got a lot going for you, and they got the generation of greatness uniforms, which they always seem to do well in those. So
yeah, especially if you mentioned 17 or 21 of those points come early in the game, and Penn State is up by a decent margin throughout the rest of the game, and then they just kind of bleed the rest of the game. So I want to, before I give my prediction, which is not going to be what I'm going to describe to you now is not what I think is going to happen in the game. But if you want to, how does Penn State put up 40 or 45 points in this game? It does start with the run and establishing them as a credible threat on the ground, because when you do that, just the inverse of the conversation with Penn State's defense is you have to allocate more resources to stop the run if you're a defense coordinator. And so in this too high structure, what they like to do is they play a lot of quarters, they play a lot of combo coverage, meaning cover 6, and then they'll play a lot of cover 2. Now, those interact differently with a run game, but especially quarters and cover 6, safeties are responsible for run fits. And so if those guys are charging hard downhill, now suddenly we have the Amari Evans post for a touchdown game on hand. That's a possibility in this game where Penn State could get some shot plays with Devontae Ross if they're able to create credible threats on the ground and get those guys edging down more towards the tackle box. And you could get an explosive attack, and everyone could come out of this game feeling like, well, no one's going to feel good because it's Northwestern, but you would at least feel like there's signs of life, because the matchup from a scheme perspective is one where Andy Kotelnicki has previously, even in the Minnesota game, he was able to get some big shot plays against defensive structures like this, and they did not get that last week. They didn't really attempt it last week because they were more of the intermediate and short passing game, trying to get Aller's confidence back on track. But in this game, at home, that could be an opportunity. Do I think that is going to happen? No, I don't. 27-13. I think Northwestern could score a touchdown. They could string a drive together. They could get a short field, something like that. A couple field goals. Penn State will score in this game. But again, I just think like the receivers to me are an issue. And if you can't, and to Fitz's point, like if you have an opportunity to break off a big run and the breeze hits your ankle and you fall over, then you're not generating the threat you need on the ground to make all that happen. So that's, I guess, what I see them grinding through another ugly win.
Rob made another good point. If the O-line continues to miss assignments, like, that's bad, very bad. And I don't think that I've seen anything that makes me change my point of view, that they're just not getting it done. So.
The one thing I would say, and again, not being down in this game, and having the ability to get Katron Allen more touches, because you're not putting your receiving back in the game, which again, that has to change. Like, they have to not worry about Nick's ability to catch the ball. Like, they just need to have the better running back and the better balanced threat out there. Getting him more opportunities where he can make up for mistakes, because it's not like these mistakes didn't exist last year. where guys were missing blocks and it wasn't like 5 perfect blocks on every play. They just were able to generate in those situations still. And this year they are not. And that, goes to breaking tackles and making plays above the structure. Ryan, final thoughts from you. We get out of here.
Go Phillies.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. The Penn State football tailgate show coming up at 12:30 on Saturday. Come say hi to us. We'll be outside the Bryce Jordan Center ticket office. We'll be discussing the game. More of this breakdown with myself and Kyle F. of Seven Mountains Media. Also, if you're tailgating, and again, you don't want to turn on your phone and be glued and antisocial. You put us on the background, 99.5 The Bus, locally 107.5, I want to say, and then on Bigfoot Country Legends. If you enjoy country music, you can get the tailgate show there as well. And of course, these guys have great content coming up during the game, before the game, after the game at bluewhiteillustrated.com. Fitz, you got something in there. What's going on?
No, Ryan's just getting cheap wins with the Phillies thing. So
let me add one more. Go Birds.
Yeah, go Birds. Oh,
listen,
wow.
the internet is based on selective pandering and who you're pandering to. And Ryan is doing it right. That's all there is to it.
Quick story, though, because we just got a text from Greg when we started the show. He said he walked into the beer distributor and he heard your voice, T. Frank. Apparently, they're live streaming us at Bresky's. Wow. So, of course, the question was, why are you walking to a beer store at 10 o'clock? And he said, Phillies Eagles doubleheader tonight. So, I mean, I get it. We love beer here. They support us. We support it. So, yeah.
Thanks, go Greg. Beer. Yeah. Go beer. All right. We'll be back. We'll talk to you later. I got my 5 things coming up tomorrow here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. We'll talk to you then.